This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Along to the Maroon and White pod, so it's Connacht final weekend. Galway make the trip to Castlebar on Sunday at 4 o'clock to aim to win their fourth Connacht title in a row. That hasn't been done since the 60s, so a big one for Galway to go after this weekend while Mayo chase for their first Connacht title under Kevin McStay. Lads, before we get in and talk about the game, your own experience of this game when it comes up, Galway Mayo. I'm joined by Conor Mortimer and Declan Meehan to look ahead to the game. Conor, for you, these games are obviously special, living on the border.
Yeah, they always would have been. Look at being so close and being around Galway people pretty much all my life effectively till I moved to Dublin probably 10 or 12 years ago. Barby in school, in Mary's, in Jarlath's. And obviously where I live, I mean, the local pubs and stuff would be the likes of Carlastrand, Headford would be down in the local pub as well. So it was always kind of it was always a big game for us. Look, it's similar to Galway, I mean, but for me anyway, it was my mum is from Tuam. I've a lot of family in Tuam, and like you always wanted to get one over on them, I suppose, in terms of and look at I was talking to a guy only a couple of days ago, and I always said back in our time, playing the Decky's team and that with Joycer and Jaff Fallon and Mickey Donlan and Decky, obviously, and his brother, two brothers, should I say. Like, you always knew if you could beat Galway then, you were in with a good crack at, probably getting to an All-Ireland final in them times, because it was into a semi-final and a final. They were a very, very good side. And that's, the rivalry was very good. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, I suppose it's different now. I mean, Galway have they're going for 4 in a row on Connacht, which is go back to maybe Horan's time with Mayo. It was Mayo who were dominant in Connacht, where now it's kind of turned around to being Galway. Obviously, pretty much since I suppose Pádraig took over Galway. But yeah, we always enjoyed it. No more than Galway, I'd imagine, playing against us, but they might have thought they had bigger fish to fry.
These games, Declan, did you enjoy them?
Yeah, of course you did. And that's from my recollection anyway, it was starting off in 96 and 97, Mayo won those 2 years. But from then on, it was nearly every second year. If we bet them 1 year, they'd surely beat us the next year. And when you thought you were going to win, surely you'd get best, so it was very through the noughties anyway, it was very 50-50 between both Galway and Mayo, which built the strong rivalry, or which added to it or copper fastened it. And then I suppose in the early teens, then Mayo were dominant, and as Conor said, and they got, was it 4 or 5 in a row Connachts as well. So
yeah,
look at that was phenomenal that time, and I think it's very much back to a 50-50 relationship again. And just if you even reflect on last year, whereas Galway won by a point in Pearse Stadium, we were very lucky on the day, I believe, and I think it'll be in a lot of Mayo's memories as well that day, and Galway went on and really played out their skin after that, and to a point, and bet the Dubs, etc. And we all know what happened in the final. But Mayo were very close on the day and probably should have bet us. And McStay thinks about that a lot. And I think come around to Sunday's game, I think he has Galway in his sights for a long time, and that's where it's at. So it just, I would be expecting a really traditional fair and a ding dong battle next Sunday. Please God, anyway. Yeah.
When did you first come across each other on a football pitch?
It's a few years ago now, Decky.
Jesus,
I'd say, Decky, when I started
2000, was it?
In around Mayo, my debut was in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
you would have probably maybe, I don't know, 27, 28, maybe around that age. That a lot of that team was 98,
Yeah.
kind of not near the end of their careers, but they were kind of mid where I was starting as such, I think.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of, obviously it was every year, so we pretty much played against each other. But it's completely, obviously the game has changed, but the personnel has changed hugely in terms of both countries. There's, I suppose, I'd know a lot of the Mayo squad. I wouldn't know them all. You might know obviously the Galway lads better, but I think when you're not based in the county, it's far more difficult to, I suppose, analyse who the young lads are coming up. You'll know some of them obviously because they're playing under 20s and minor and at that level. But we've had quite a few guys on that Mayo panel for quite a number of years who aren't probably regulars when they probably should be. They're not getting enough game time in terms of, you're getting league games. There's probably 2 or 3 there. Young Toohey there from Charlestown. He's played a lot of league games over the last 3 years. But when it comes to championship, you have your guys, who will play. I think that trust probably isn't there where, obviously Galway have a fairly set squad in terms of their 15. Now it was probably interesting for me last week in terms of Walsh and Comer not playing, and I think it gave the other guys a little bit more freedom in terms of doing, getting more out of themselves, and they might have looked a little bit more fluid last week. Now, albeit Mayo's defence will probably be better than what they've faced so far, so I'd imagine they're going to need, Jackie, you probably have a more of an understanding of what Joyce will probably do Sunday with them, but it'll be very hard, to leave the likes of Shane Walsh out, for a game of this magnitude. I would feel, myself.
Well, I believe just on that point, I believe if he was fit, he'd be in. But if he's not fit, he won't be in. Yeah. So that's the problem there. Look at Galway have been settled, and I suppose before the Roscommon game, I had question marks over them, and I was after Kerry in the league, you were kind of scratching the head and going, what's going on at all? But then look, they looked comfortable against Roscommon, and I suppose the question there is how good were Roscommon on the day? I think we expected them to be better, and they probably expected to give a better account of themselves. Traditionally, it always you get a real tough battle against the Rossies, so I don't know. We're not here to talk about that, but so it's hard to know how good Galway are really. But they look comfortable against Roscommon. Now, as I said earlier, and I think it's well documented that Mayo have been looking forward to the Connacht final from a long way out. So whether they had heavy training through the league and even before Sligo and Leitrim, with a focus on this game, that remains to be seen.
I think it's a part of it. I wouldn't say in terms of hugely heavy training, but I definitely say that from the start of the year, the minimum is a Connacht Championship, considering that Galway have won the last 3, I think. And particularly, obviously, it stung last year in Pearse Stadium, and the fact that Goff, in the meantime, has said he made a mistake with the free for that goalkeeper to kick it, that it wasn't a free, is probably a little bit of a jerker for Max Day and co. But look, it's like anything. It doesn't matter the form guy going into this game. Particularly from a Mayo point of view. Like, okay, you look at Galway the first couple of games, and Mayo, okay, Galway are playing better. All roads lead to Galway. But Jackie, you know this as well as I do. Going back over the years, good Mayo teams have been beaten by not as good Galway teams, and vice versa over the years. It doesn't matter. It's on the day, and particularly in the Connacht final, like there's a lot. And the one thing I'd say in terms of the only probably concern that I'd have outside of the fact that it's a big derby game and it'll inevitably be tight, we've a lot of young guys who haven't played in a game of this magnitude with Galway, where Galway's lads, they might have one or two that but they've
Hmm.
experience now of 3 medals in their pocket over the last 3 years. It's not new to them. Where for some of our lads outside, I'd say 5 or 6, they don't have a Connacht medal. So
Yeah,
it's different. Like, it's a different animal for them guys. But if they can turn those nerves into positives,
yeah.
you could get a really good performance from Mayo and give it a right old rattle.
Yeah, well, I agree with you to a point, but if you look through every line Mayo, there is strong leaders there, like between Stephen Cole, Matthew Ruan,
Mm.
Aidan, Ryan, and then the bench of Diarmid and O'McLaughlin maybe. So like I'm sure the academy is good in Mayo, so there'll be no fear of them. But
No.
Galway, I do have a more settled look about them. That's true. But you mentioned the two boys, Shane and Damien. I think we'll need someone helping up front, or we need big effort up front to to nail this one. Whether it's Shane or Damien, I don't know if they're available, but something like that strength is going to be required. It always was, it always will be against Mayo.
Yeah,
So I think we need more than Rob Finnerty, kicking up front, because he could be, when you have a good semi-final, it's hard to reproduce it in the final. So look at he'll always be a marked man, and Matthew Tierney as well. So we might need something extra up front.
Yeah, I think the one concern that we'd have had, lads, over the couple of games and probably a bit of the league, we haven't kicked a huge amount of 2-pointers, where Galway have maybe 2 or 3 lads who can kick. They've big legs on them, effectively. They've big strikers, Conroy and Walsh, obviously. Um, Tierney's a big kicker as well.
Tierney,
I mean, they have that. They have those options where we haven't. Obviously, we haven't seen it yet. And as I said, outside of Ryan, really, in terms of, yeah, he'll probably get 5 or 6 points the weekend. He might get 3 or 4 frees and a couple from play or whatever. He'll get those scores, but outside of that, who's going to get your 1-2, or who's going to get your, 2 or 3 points? Like, it's very hard to
yeah,
see. I can't see off the bat of, if I look at the team and pick it, you, like you might get a point here, a point there. You're not getting your 2 or 3. It's very hard to see where Mayo are going to get 116, 117 come Sunday. Like, always, defense is good as well. Don't forget, it's not a porous defense by any stretch. So I think a lot of guys are going to have to kind of step up. And Ruan, who hasn't been great in the last couple of weeks, the midfield battle is going to be big, because Galway, 11, 6, 8, 9. They've got a lot of size there at the minute, and Tierney is on. I think he played wing forward the last day. They're big men, like, they're strong out in
they're big men, yeah.
that quartet, and we have big lads there as well. But like the likes of Ruan, like, even, and like, they're strong, but they're not very wide, and really, really strong. As, like, he's a lovely player, like, and he glides along the turf, and Matty Ruan. But in terms of breaking through walls and stuff, look at McDade coming in there, Conroy. They're dogs of the road, like, they're strong boys, and they're dominant in the middle third, like. But look, we'll see. I think it's a lot of stuff for me has to go right for me all for it to happen. And I think you would have seen in the Leitrim game, like, they kept in the game even though we were trying hard, and the same thing again, like, one of the Leitrim guys, the big midfielder, got, I think it was 2, maybe 3 2-pointers.
Yeah.
We're lax in terms of teams kicking 2-pointers against us, and if they do that Sunday, it won't be a joyful game for me if they stand off Galway around that arc area. But I don't think they will. But they've been forewarned. Not that they're going to listen to me now or anything, but they've been forewarned.
Declan, you mentioned it there about Shane and Damien. Who do they start instead of? Because if you look at that forward line against Roscommon, everyone moved very well. McDade, Tierney,
Oh yeah,
Kelly even seemed to be higher up.
yeah.
And then if you look at the three inside, Matthew Thompson came into it really well. and Robert Finnerty came into it really well there. It's a tough decision for PJ this week.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even like PJ always makes his own calls, and he knows what's going on better than anyone. So I wouldn't even be looking at starting them. I'd say if they're fit to come in, they'll come in. You know, that'd be where I'd see them fitting in. But look, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at all. I hope they're both fit, and I hope they're ready to come in. I think one or two of them will be needed. That's my point. And they'll be needed at their best. You know, that's that. I just I think we're going down a road here. Like, I think this is going to be a game for the ages, like similar maybe to Cork and Kerry. Like, you couldn't see that coming in terms of league form or and the bookies and the whole lot. So I would see the form book out the window and just hell for leather, pride in the jersey, and you know, it'll be dog eat dog in Castlebar, and I wouldn't see it being much in it either way. So
No,
I really, I'm looking forward to it on that basis. You know, I just think Mayo have enough motivation, and that's the dangerous thing. And Galway probably would have preferred if they got a better contest against Roscommon. You know.
You worked with PJ obviously when you're involved with the development squad, and you played with him. What's the
Mhm.
difference between PJ as a player and as a manager?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because he was a strong player. Well, he was a leader as a player as well. You know, he was captain in Jarlath's, and we were successful that time. And like, he was captain in Galway in 2000 when we lost to Kerry. But he always had a strong presence in the dressing room, and he had a good, I suppose, rapport with various managers. So he he could it was a natural progression for him anyway, into coaching and into management. You know, it was only a matter of time. Like, he went straight into it practically from when he finished playing up. So that's great to see. So he was always destined for it now, and even his uncle, God rest him, Billy, was a great player with Galway, and then he went on to be a successful manager as well. So I think there's actually similarities between uncle and nephew there. You know.
If you're looking at the Mayo management side of things, Connor, when you hear this that Stephen Rossford has never won a Connacht title involved in a Mayo setup, Kevin McStay has never won it but Mayo, do you think it has to be time now on Sunday for them both to?
look, I mean, I think it's imperative that they win Sunday. I think it'll be a serious blow if they don't. Um, like, particularly after what it'll be the fourth year now that they haven't, and not just the management team, but the county as a whole. I mean, we're like similar to Galway. We're all proud Mayo people, and you know, we're used to being thereabouts. You know, winning Connacht championships or whatever it may be, the same as Galway have been over the last 10, 15 years. So I think I think the pressure is on. I think from a supporter's point of view, the pressure is certainly on. You know, they won't have been too pleased with what they've seen so far this year, and I think, in fairness to Kevin, like, since obviously it was a bit of a, you know, from the starting point of the management, there was a little, I suppose, bit of unrest around the county, and not having bought huge success. Obviously, they won a league or whatever along the way. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of kind of championships and the real meaty stuff, I think that's what Mayo supporters want to see, and winning those big games, getting to Crow Park, having won a Connacht championship, as opposed to, you know, going in the qualifier route or whatever it may be. So there is pressure on them, you know, and like, the fact of the matter is, the longer this wait goes on for a Connacht championship, the more the pressure increases, and that's not going to change if they don't manage to get a result on Sunday. And like, things change very, very quickly in the GA world. I mean, if they win Sunday, it's all positive and it's all roses and onto Croke Park then after that. But if they don't win, and you'll have seen those pots that are floating around there for the teams after the provincial championships. There's a couple of groups in there. If you can't win Sunday, you don't want to be in them. It'll be a short summer. Yeah.
It's madness that the draw is being done on Wednesday again before the Connacht final. So Galway know if they win or if they lose who they're going to be playing before.
Yeah, it puts an imperative on the winners, obviously, to avoid the pitfalls of what can be in those games. There's a lot of tough games there going to be, like Tyrone are going to be in there, Dublin are going to be in there. I mean, there's a couple of spots there you don't really want to be going to. But look, going back to, I suppose, what Jackie was saying in terms of Sunday, like, I mean, it's a very hard game to call. Every year it's a hard game to call. There hasn't been too many heavy defeats in Connacht finals from what I can remember over the years. So I think it's something to look forward to. And yeah, and the funny thing is, and it's I don't know what it is, but even with the hurling going on there, I know Liverpool were playing and all that kind of stuff at the weekend, but there isn't a whole lot about any games this year in the championship in terms of everyone buzzing around. You're seeing it in the paper, you're seeing it on the news, all that kind of stuff. It just seems to be very, very quiet. And I thought the Cork-Kerry game, as Decky mentioned there, might kind of ignite it a little bit in terms of, wow, I think people were probably surprised with what Cork brought to the game. This is the shock, and so I think Sunday might be that start to the, I suppose, I know Meath bet Dublin yesterday and stuff like that, but even that, I mean, that's, if you look back at the last 15 years in Leinster, like, and now Dublin are beaten, there isn't a whole lot of talk about it today, like, in terms of that they're gone, like, are beaten, you know what I mean? Strange.
I think it was said before, it's just the calendar. The new calendar is still bedding in, and look, we're not used to they used to be saying in Galway with the hay home and the turf made up and Mayo bet, like, this was a great summer. But that'll be August, like, or the end of July. That was the time of year for that. But look, I don't know. I agree with you, Conor. I think there's too many games to digest in over one weekend or over 2 weekends. Yeah. And you'd love maybe a 3-week build up to a Connacht final or something like that. But look, this is the way it's gone now at the minute.
Yeah, it's very quick and condensed, and it's it is, to be fair. But look, we are where we are, aren't we?
This is.
Declan, you seem a bit nervous about this game at the weekend.
Yeah, well, it's a bitter experience, I tell you. That's what it's based on. I know, like even that's. I suppose I started at the outset talking about my experience of Galway Mayo was a 50-50. You win one this year and you lose the next year, and that was the case when I was playing. So maybe that's tainting it a bit. But look, I would be nervous just because of the nature of the defeat last year that Mayo lost in Pearse Stadium, the build-up they've had to and just going in under the radar. It's always a nice way to be. And look, Galway are big lads and they're streetwise, so they'll have all this taken account of. But I'm just a bit nervous as a supporter anyway. Going down. That I hope the young fella is happy in the maroon and white coming home on Sunday evening, but there's no guarantees.
No guarantees. Look, and for me, from a Mayo point of view, I think there's probably more. Look, it's obviously cliche, but I think there's more pressure on Galway from a Mayo point of view in terms of particularly supporters and stuff, considering we're expecting a performance in that where the win or lose, it's anyone's guess, but in terms of, I don't think the expectancy or pressure is there that's been there the last maybe 2 or 3 years, going on how we've probably gone with a pretty poor league final, and since then it's been pretty stuttery, and that goes into the Sligo game obviously, and then the Leitrim game. obviously too tough. Like Leitrim are tough enough to play away as well. Don't get me wrong, but if you're wanted to be, I suppose, competing at the latter stages of the championship, they're not really games that you should be stuttering through effectively. They didn't win a game in the league. They had to postpone a game a couple of weeks ago because there's no players to play it. I mean, it's not, and like, do I think Mayo will win the game? Look, they've every chance of winning the game. No more than Galway. It's a 50-50 game. But if Galway play to their potential, and as Decky says there, with the two lads and that coming off, that they're serious additions to come off the bench, like, because they're scorers, like, in danger in the forward line. We've lads coming off, as you mentioned, Decky, like I said, obviously O'Connor and that, and like, you're not getting 4 or 5 points there. You know what I mean? You're getting an impact player, yes, out the field, but in terms of Galway, what they have coming off, or coming on, should I say, it's just, it gets defenders very, very nervous. Like, particularly when you're seeing Comer coming on, and look, we all know what Walsh can offer when he's on form. But the likes of Comer, and we've a relatively inexperienced fullback as well, 2 or 3 years at senior level. Where Comer is cute, like, you know what I mean. He's not. He didn't, fall down this year or last year. He's been around for quite a number of years, like, and he's experiencing those big games as well. But look at it. It just adds to it for me. I think there's so many different things that can happen, and particularly in the Connacht final, a man gets sent off after a couple of minutes, or whatever it may be, with these rules and the referees, and you gotta, like, in our time, emotions would always been high, and that.
Just on that, Connor, is this a difficult game to control your emotions?
You'd be a little bit hyped up, obviously, because you're playing against your neighbours effectively, and you'd be giving it a bit of stick, and you'd be buzzing around and doing what you have to do, like kicking it over the bar and giving them a bit of a yelp or whatever. But that's like, I mean, it's different now, because it used to be very, very physical, like, and Galway they were strong boys, like, they were physical side, and there was a bit of.
Jesus, I think they're more physical now. They're all like, as it's gone very, like, John Maher and these lads around the middle. They're monsters. Another lad to mention is Paul Cook. He's floating around the panel again. I think he could be a great addition. Don't know if he'd be involved at the weekend, but maybe later in the year we might see him. And other honourable mention, it's good to see Sean Kelly back to full fitness. He didn't look fit the last 2 years, or he didn't look free of injury. And touch wood, now he looked like he was running properly again against Roscommon. So that was good to see from our point of view. He struggled definitely the last 2 years.
Not good for everyone else's point of view, Decky. But yeah, Kelly, in fairness, go back to Galway's first year in the All Ireland. There, he's a serious footballer, like.
Oh yeah, he's a leader as well, like, so hopefully we from our point of view, I'd love to see him getting up the steps for the.
That's just another advantage for Galway. Another man coming back. Cook is another man coming back. All roads lead to Galway, man.
You're playing the Kerry card.
Remember that. All roads lead to Galway. But look,
true, though.
Well, yeah, true. I can assure you, I won't be standing at the door. You needn't worry.
Mm-hmm.
On this 15, like we talked earlier on, Declan, about, like, PJ now, it's probably the biggest headache he has. Like, the 15 he started, even Sean Mulcairn came in against Roscommon, did a terrific man-marking job on Enda Smith, which pushed Sean Kelly further up the pitch. You have players there like Walsh and Comer, and even Cook as well, that he was on the standby squad if he comes into the 26. What do you see PJ doing? Do you see him sticking with the same 15, or?
I'd say he always throws something new into the mix, but I'd say he'll stick closely enough to us. And depending on if those 3 men we mentioned are fit, they might get into the match day squad. But like, I think the mindset has changed. In our day, it was the first 15, and there weren't too many changes made over the course of the game. Maybe 2 or 3 towards the end of the match, and like you're really making the first 15 was be all and end all. Now I think players are more have their heads around the squad system, and you have your finishers and your starters, and you just because you didn't start, you still get 20 minutes or half an hour. So
Yeah.
I think players have their head around that as well, a bit better, the squad system. So like you look at you nearly pick, you can nearly name the subs that are going to come on and when they're going to come on a given day. Just the way it is, the way it's gone. So I'd say he'll stick closely enough to the Roscommon squad team if they're all available, and then hopefully he might have a few more fit bodies around the panel as well.
The one thing for Mayo,
You
Connor,
couldn't
Ryan
fault
O'Donoghue,
the.
just with that, Ryan O'Donoghue, like Johnny McGrath did a terrific job on him the last year or two. It's hard to see Mayo get a result if Ryan O'Donoghue doesn't have the game of his life here.
Look, I wouldn't say he needs the game of his life, but he needs to play very, very well. He needs to not be curbed. Like as I said earlier, he's going to score, a couple of points from play, maybe 2 or 3, and he'll score 3 or 4 frees as well. I mean, that's just what he does. Like, it is probably difficult to see, as I said earlier, where we're going to get scores from. Like Jordan Flynn will probably tap in with a couple of scores. O'Shea might get a goal, maybe a point or two. David Neary's the young fellas come in. Darren McHale, are they going to get your scores? You might get 1 or 2, but like I haven't seen in all the games that we've played. Okay, guaranteed he's going to get 2 or 3 points. Guaranteed he's going to get 2 or 3 points. Outside of the likes of O'Donoghue, effectively. As I said too, he'll probably come off the bench, has the tendency to score a couple of points. But Ruang can score 2 or 3 from midfield as well. There's a big spread, but
yeah, I think Mayo can get them from all over the pitch. The half back line included. Sorry, Connor. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like it's like the one thing with Galway, I think, and particularly a lot of the time they're half forward. They have a fairly defensive-minded half forward line in terms of the way these rules are, in terms of dropping back and swamping defenses and stuff like that. It's difficult to get scores against Galway. It always has been. That's going back to our time as well. I mean, it's never an easy, and it was only the good ones that could get scores against Galway all through our lives, me included.
Very good.
On a serious note, no, look, I think he certainly needs to have a big game. Yes, I mean, there's no question of that. There's definitely more of a spread in the Galway forward line than there is in the Mayo forward line, and I suppose reliability, shall we say. They're not mainly reliable on one player, where we're heavily reliant on them in terms of play well. Mayo generally play better. It would be. I agree with your point. It would be very difficult to win the game if he doesn't have a good game. Like in fairness to O'Donoghue, even if he's kind of clamped a little bit by the defender, he works really, really hard.
Geez, yeah.
He tackles. He's out around the field. He's on ball. He's not going to have a bad game in terms of overall, but it's. I think the main thing for him and for Mayo is we need him close to goal where he can do damage and get scores. That's the important part. Like, there's no point having him out around the middle of the field, getting on ball, laying off ball, and he needs to be inside where he can do his damage. And it'll be a ferocious battle with that guy, the cornerback you just mentioned there. What's his name?
Johnny McGrath, yeah.
Johnny McGrath. And they're very similar in terms of stature, width. McGrath's, they're around the same size, and he's a dogged marker, McGrath, as well. So he'll have his work cut out from now, Ryan, on Sunday. But I think he if he gets decent ball and the supply is good and the other forwards are working hard to make space for him, I think he'll do fine. I wouldn't have any concerns. And his mentality is good as well. He gets a lot of stick, he gets a lot of abuse, but he's a tough little tough player. So yeah, I look, I think he'll have a good game, but I wouldn't say he needs to be Superman for them to win the game, but he certainly needs to play well. Yes.
It's been interesting with Mayo too, Declan. They've kind of nearly in similar ways adapted these kind of big physical men around the middle like Galway have. I suppose Galway have this. I suppose you have Darcy, you have Mary, you have Conroy, you have McDade, but if you go to Mayo and you look as well, like Dave Moran, Dave Jordan Flynn, Dave Dermot O'Connor, Dave Davitt Neary, like it's going to be some battle around the middle here on Sunday.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. No, and we didn't really go into it, but like, I think the new rules particularly on the kick out are transformational. It's really bringing a mighty contest back into it. Like,
Yeah,
the when you have to go long and look, I'm sure there's an awful lot of tactics and thought and strategies put into the kick out still, but a lot of them are 50-50, and there's breaking ball, and as you said, there's big men colliding, and then you have, so like Keane Darcy definitely came to the fore against Roscommon, but he'll be snuffed out by the likes of Jordan Flynn, or it's going to be a good epic battle around the middle. But like John Maher has been the key to Galway for the number of years now, and if he can stay fit and stay driving us on, even Paul is kind of very good to come in with the 2 pointers. That seems to be his trademark of late. But Maher is just kind of one of your box to box midfielders. He's really brings a mighty energy to us. So he's the inspiration around the middle for Galway, I think.
As I mentioned the Rhino Dunhu matchup, you're looking at Johnny McGrath there. You're probably looking, I'd say, Sean Fitzgerald and Aidan O'Shea again.
Yeah. Look at about Ryan, like Ryan always has a 7 out of 10, and if I think you're just saying if he has an 8 or a 9, that's when So I even it'll be a great contest with himself and is it Johnny, or like Jack could come over on him either, but yeah, we have cover there, and that'll be a great contest. But Aidan O'Shea has really a big influence in this game. He has a massive year so far, and he always seems to do well against Galway, whether it's out around the middle or in full forward line, and Sean Fitz will have to mark him, and it'll be a tough assignment for Sean, I believe. He's so clever and he's strong, and he's like a wrecking ball in there. I definitely think Connor mentioned he might get a goal. Like he'll definitely cause enough havoc, and he might, if he doesn't score one, he'll set one up. So it's that's why I would say uh, he'll have a big influence himself and Ryan, and then like when you step it back, like if them two are on song as I expect them to be, it puts Mayo in a lot different position. Yeah, Ado will have a big say in the game as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one there. If you're looking at these matchups, if you're looking from a Mayo perspective, and you're looking at that full back line, Connor, you've Enda Hession, Donald McHugh there, and Jack Coyne. How do you see them tying up with Galway in attack? Like, who do you see going over on Finnerty and Tierney there?
I'd imagine Coyne would probably pick up Tierney or Hessian. I would say it kind of depends if Comer's playing. Neither of them will. What's the young full back to have? Or
Yeah,
youngest
like you
lad?
had Donald McHugh there, but like even going back to last year, like McBride really struggled on Comer in that kind of final.
Yeah, Comer's strong. Like Comer's a very,
Yeah.
very strong footballer. Like he's very well. He's a big fella. Like he's strong. Um, like I would have thought that the likes of Hessian and that would probably take Finnerty. Hessian is pacey and he's slight, and he's very attack minded, which would keep Finnerty on the back foot, even though you can probably only go to halfway. So I think look at Brian, obviously in the corner as well. He's had a good season so far. He's strong and he's dogged. Like I would imagine they were probably penciling in him to pick up Walsh. I would imagine at the start of the year. So, but whatever you see in terms of when the teams are named, I think you'll see a huge difference when the teams line up on Sunday. I think you'll see a lot of different matchups. I know the Galway fullback, has probably, he's done all right in O'Shea over the years. Like, but O'Shea is dangerous inside in terms of if he stays inside and they kick ball into him. Like the problem that I've seen with Mayo, and it was evident. I think O'Shea, particularly in the Kerry game in the league final, like he did very good first half inside, and then the second half he was out midfield pretty much the whole of the second half. Like, and we'd no one to aim for, no one kicked the ball into. And I don't know if that a management thing or he trusts out himself. I don't really know, but he needs to bolt himself at full forward, be one of them anchor men in there, and drive the ball into him. Because look at it, he's very difficult to stop if you get the ball. Like you're either going to foul him or he's going to get a score. Like, but he has to get the ball. I mean, and like for me, it shouldn't be a case of we'll move to half forward or move him to centre forward. You kick in 10 balls to him. Okay, if he loses 8 balls, right, not having a good game, off you come. Someone else goes on. It's not move him out to half forward, move him out to midfield to start getting on ball. I mean, you need to have your, as you know, like you were saying, like in terms of Galway, where they're settled in terms of their players in their positions. We know there's still a bit of jumping around done with our players in terms of positional and moving players around. And bear in mind, like we're still, we're missing Durkin and we're missing Tommy Conroy as well, still, which are huge losses
Do you
to
think?
any
Do you think
team.
there's a trick there? Do you think they could be in line
No,
this weekend?
Conroy did his knee again, so there's no
Ah.
chance of him playing. Like
Okay.
he's not out. I think Durkin is fairly long term as well. To be fair,
Yeah. I know he played for Castlebar, was it a week or two ago? It was their second team, but that was
yeah,
They're
it's just
Yeah.
the levels are
Yeah.
black and
they're
white.
two huge losses. In fairness, like
Yeah.
the Mayo team from a year or two ago, like they were class operators.
Yeah, and the way it is, like Mayo are good when they're attacking from their half back line.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference being the likes of Durkin would be excellent with the 2 point rule.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a shooter from distance, like he's a big boot on him, like you know what I mean. We're getting a lot of attacks from our half back line, but we're not getting huge scores off them particular individuals. You know what I mean? They lay off the ball to the forwards and all that. And that's fine. But the likes of Durkin, Lee Keegan, even back in his time, yourself, Sean Og de Puer, like shooters from distance. You weren't the most accurate, but you tried. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever mark each other?
Not directly, but we came across each other a few times.
Yeah.
Usually when
You
I was
ever,
running
you
past
ever
him.
ran to Statham?
No, I was too quick. I was gone like a bullet.
I was going to say there earlier that Robbie Finnerty is a bit like you, Conor. He's a classic corner forward. He hasn't was interested in defending or going back down the field.
No, he's not. And I was going to say earlier, it went out of my head, but when you were saying about the squads and players understanding about starters and finishers, I said, it's a pity I didn't know that in 2012. I'd still be there.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, look at like, there's so many things that can happen in this game, like, and like even Sunday, like no more than our times, Decky. I remember like games that we used to play. I think it was in Pearse Stadium. Like I think I would have played Galway maybe 6 Connacht finals, 5 or 6. Lost 2 of them. One of them in Castlebar. Maybe 2 of them in Castlebar. Actually, I think it might have been, and 1, 2 maybe in Pearse Stadium along the way as well. So home and away doesn't really. It hasn't been good for us now, mind you, over the last number of years. But like, I think Galway don't mind going to Castlebar to play either. I think they're comfortable enough playing down there as well. So it is all the makings, as you said, Decky, of a cracking game of football.
Hope so. Anyway, yeah.
Do you think we will get that, Declan, on Sunday?
Pardon me?
I was just saying there. Do you think we'll actually get a good game of football on Sunday?
I do. Yeah. I just think it's going to be one of the classics. You're looking at a fine week coming if the weather forecast is right, and a dry sod and a fast ball. Like I think the new rules are a step or an improvement all around. So yeah, I think who knows? Like the Mayo lads could start kicking 2-pointers for fun down in Castlebar. It's the town goal there. You'd be swinging them no bother from 45. So I think like you can't really. The league means nothing because
No.
It just take, as I said, the Kerry Cork example there. The league goes out the window. That form doesn't matter, and I do expect a great contest, and I just hope that we have more experience that can guide us over the line. If it comes down to it, but I'm looking forward to it anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think it's a good point there about the rules. Like, the fact of the matter is, you look at all the games this year so far in the championship, there hasn't really been one game that you'd say that's been like last year's championship in terms of dire stuff to watch.
Yeah.
They're high scoring, there's scores galore, there's football being played, there's fastball, and like, I think the more quality on the field, the better the game will be. And look at, realistically, you're looking at two very, very good sides, and, two rivals, to Connacht final. Mayo haven't obviously won one in a few years. So I think that's, I was kind of saying it today, and look, from a Mayo point of view, it's probably more important that we win the game on Sunday in terms of where we've been over the last number of years, as opposed to that's from a Mayo point of view. Obviously, Galway are going to be thinking the same, but from our point of view, I think a loss on Sunday would be detrimental to this season. I would imagine. I think it's a lot tougher, a much tougher route by not winning on Sunday to get to where you want to get to, and I think that'll be in both management teams and both players' minds coming into Sunday. But, as you said, Decky, earlier, it'll be 50-50. It's going to be a tight game. The experience for me that Galway have probably gives them a slight advantage if it's tight with 10 minutes to go, and if they have the bench that they're looking at to come on. Well, me personally, I'd probably rather see Walsh start, to be fair, as opposed to coming. I don't really want to be seeing them coming on 10 minutes to go when there's tired bodies around, like, and the game is 12 each or 13 each or whatever. It's not really what you want to be seeing from your point of view, like in the last few minutes of a game. But look, that adds to the excitement of the weekend, and everything that can happen come Sunday. But look, I wouldn't go as far as saying that we're hugely confident, but Mayo are very, very proud, and I can guarantee you those 30, 40 lads training there Tuesday and Thursday night this week will be confident going out on McHale Park on Sunday with an expectancy of winning the game. No question of that.
Have you the suit ready for halftime, Declan?
I don't know what I'm going to wear on Sunday now, but we'll get some threads somewhere. Yeah.
What have you been honoured with this year, Decky?
It's the 25-year from 2000. All the Connacht finalists are every year are honoured. So you'll be there next year probably, or Frankie Dolan or someone. 2000, yeah, it's 25 years from 2000. So yeah, the Connacht finalists, isn't that Connacht champions? Is that it? Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, so that's the gig, yeah. So
Very good.
I'm just glad that Galway were there. If it was Roscommon and Mayo, we'd be feeling very sheepish.
It's all the Galway team.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Your whole squad, very good.
yeah, but it rolls around. It'll be the following year. It'll be Roscommon next year. Yeah,
Yeah.
2001. So it rolls around.
Yeah, we had Sean O'Depere on there a week ago, and he was just saying he's glad Galway are in it too. I don't think too many of us wanted Mayo Roscommon from that perspective.
Exactly.
If you're just looking at it overall now, for me personally, I think if both teams play well, I don't think Galway lose. I think they're just better at the minute, and it's as simple as that. I think as I said, both teams play well. I just think Galway overall have a better team, and I don't see where Mayo are going to get scores from at the weekend. How do you see it, Declan?
Look, that reminds me of kind of the talk that was going around before the Armagh game last year. Look at, and this is even. Well, I'm repeating myself. I see it as being very 50-50. I see it as something unknown could happen, like Aidan O'Shea could get 2 goals on Sunday, or you know, or you could have sending off in the first minute. You could have, you know, penalties. Well, who knows? So I just, it's hard to predict it, but I don't see it being anyways a big win for either side. I just think it'll be tit for tat all the way along, and maybe a crunch decision like we had last year. We'll swing it, because these are the same. These are the same lads Mayo have. It's kind of, sometimes we get caught up in like whatever media talk or something. Like these are still the same lads, same Jack Coyne, same Sam Callanan. Like he was they were being really talked up this time
Yeah.
last year, or as the next big thing. Like, so they're still there, and they're hurting probably with hurting with what happened in the league final and in the Connacht final last year. So they're going to come out with bursting with pride, and so it's whether Galway are able for that, and can deal with that, and the Mayo crowd is like a 16th man down there as well. So for all those reasons, I am nervous, and I would, you know, so I don't. I hear what you're saying, but from my experience, I just think it's going to be too tight, very tight. Yeah.
You see Galway scraping it?
Uh, yeah, I would see. I said, if our experience holds and our bench plays a role, and something like sending off doesn't happen, or, you know, or a serious injury, God forbid. But, you know, there's so too many unknowns. But I said it earlier, joking, like, who knows? We could be looking at penalties or anything in this game, and there has to be a winner. So if it was a tight affair and went to extra time, you know, we might even see penalties. But I this is a maroon and white podcast, so I'm going with the maroon and white.
Yeah, I presume Connor's going to back Galway now as well.
No, I like a lot of what Jackie's saying there. I'd be thinking along the same lines, but like I'd like to be able to say there's more of an expectation in Mayo rather than hoping. Like, as I said earlier, when you're not based there, okay, I see the games that they play without being around the country or whatever like that, and, you know, going off the 2 championship games that we've played, I'm hoping that they perform. You know, I think if they can perform, they'll be in with a good shout of getting a result. If they can perform to the best of their ability, because, you know, I agree with what Declan is saying there in terms of this game will probably be decided on either a bit of magic or a referee's call, or, you know, something that you can't really train for, that just happens on the day or whatever it may be. I'd be very surprised if Galway won this game comfortably. Very, very surprised. I'm not saying that they won't, but I'd be very surprised if that was to happen. Like, you know, my own Galway over the years, like, always tight games. There's always a kick in the ball at it. There's peaks and troughs through the game. Galway get a green purple patch. We all get a purple patch, and for me, it's who converts more in their patches will win the game. Now, like, as I said earlier, this is kind of where I have a little bit of difficulty in terms of there's more finishing power on the Galway side than there is on our side for me. Therefore, if they can, as I said earlier, if Galway play to their peak and hit those scores when it matters, they'll be very difficult to beat. That's just the reality of the game. Like that's going on what we've seen so far this season. And in fairness to Galway, a little bit more so than Mayo. Galway, you know, you're going to an All-Ireland 2 years ago, and All-Ireland last year. Galway are knocking and knocking and knocking, and they're not kind of going away. They're at the very, very highest level when it comes to the business end of the championship, as they have been for the last couple of years. We haven't. But this is kind of a very good time for Mayo, and, you know, Decky, you know this from back in our time. When expectancy is high on a team who are playing very, very well, there's nothing like a trip to Castlebar to kind of upset the apple cart, and then for Mayo to go and do the job. Like if you like go back to Galway, I think was it 98? Mayo carried
99.
97, 99. Then
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Galway go and beat Mayo when there was no one giving them a chance of winning the game.
yeah.
Nobody. And they went down and won it, and then happened to win All Ireland.
And then in '99, he done the same to us
Yeah,
in Tuam.
it was it was a swing around, like, and that's particularly it's very dangerous to call, like a team like, you know, Galway are playing very well and Mayo aren't going well, or vice versa, or whatever it may be. But I'll go with Mayo in a tight game. You know, going on the fact that, like, for me, if Mayo are to win, Mayo are to have to play very, very well and have your 7 out of 8 in maybe 12 or 13 positions. That's the only way Mayo are going to win that game. If we only have, as I go back to, you know, if we have 4 or 5 non-performers or not performing to their peak, you're not going to beat a side as good as Galway. You need to have the majority of your side playing well. And go back to what we were saying earlier in terms of kickouts and stuff. I think Repeat will have a big say on the game. You know, his kickouts haven't been what they should be in the last couple of games. I think he needs to really, really, I suppose, be on top of his game and have a good understanding with his guys out the field, because, you know, we kind of see Galway in the last couple of years, like I said, and as I said earlier, they're massive around the middle. They're strong under the breaking ball. The big men, they like the likes of Maher as well, like the middle of the field. Like, I mean, he's a big man. He's and can well able to play football. So we need to be dominant on breaks and win a lot of primary possession. And as I said, if we can turn them into scores, we have a great chance of getting a result in the game. But if we can't, if it's kind of a huff and a puff, it'll be a difficult game for Mayo. But look, I'll go for Mayo, you know, point or two, tight game, but very, you know, I'd be hopeful as opposed to expectant. Look at it that way.
Yeah, hopefully it will be a difficult game for you now on Sunday. That's what we're all hoping here. Before we finish, I'll just finish with a few quick fire questions on Galway and Mayo for you both. Declan, I'll come to you first. What's your own favourite memory against Mayo?
Jesus, well, I the Connacht final in '98, I suppose, when we with Jono, God rest him, John O'Mahony, when we broke down the door in Castlebar, and like Mayo had been in 2 finals, 96, 97, had a great strong team, and Galway came with a bit of an ambush, and we were lucky, but we went on from that day and never you know, in Connacht, and that day really was the highlight. Even though I didn't start. I think I come on with a few minutes to go, but that was the day. Yeah, that was the day that kind of changed our lives. I think, you know. So that one.
Toughest Mayo opponent?
Well, I had the misfortune one year of marking Kieran MacDonald, so I'd put him down as it wasn't probably the best matchup ever. But anyway, yeah, that was a tough day. But look, I marked Trevor Morse as well, another tough opponent, and John Casey, all those lads. There was never any Anthony McGarry when it was a half forward. He was a tough wing back, but I would go with Kieran Mack.
And the best Galway player you played with, Declan?
Jesus, there's a trio there. I'll go with Pádraig Joyce, Jeff Fallon, Michael Donlan. Take your pick from there, and probably a lot of my friends like Paul Clancy and Derek Savage will be given out to me for not mentioning them. But no, I would go with either Donlan, Joyce, or Fallon. Like, you couldn't really. It's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, yeah. And just before I go on to Conor, what does a Connacht medal mean, Declan, out of all the things you won? Do you place it high up there? How do you regard a Connacht Championship medal?
I would place it very high up, and you regret the ones you missed out on as well. So look at it. I think the Connacht Championship is the nearly the strongest championship in the country for the last 30 years. So Connacht medals are hard won, and there's a share of them between Galway and Mayo, I suppose. But it as Conor touched on there, it sets you up for the year. Like, bar the one notable exception in 2001, you're better off winning the Connacht and taking it from there. So the Connacht medal is held highly in Galway, and it always will be, I think.
Connor, what's your own favourite memory against Galway?
Um, I think that the main one would be, I think it was it '06 we beat them in the Connacht final in Castlebar. I
I
got a
thought you were going
free.
to say the 2009 celebration.
No, no, that was a good day in terms of, obviously we were very lucky to win the game in the end, to be fair. But no, from a footballing point of view, I think it was that kind of final. I had a free with probably 6 or 7 minutes to go, and Michael Donlan had a free then on the 45 with I think it was a free or 45 or whatever it was, and it went wide then. And I think the jubilation that we had after that game was one of the most memorable times for us. I know we got on to another Ireland after that and stuff like that, but that was a big. That Galway team was a very, very good side. Like that we beat that night. Like all the big boys were playing in that game. The likes of Decky, Michael Donlan, Joyce, serious outfit of players like Joe Berger on the middle. And yeah, it was a big win for us at that time. It was one of the most enjoyable ones, because obviously, well, for me anyways, obviously when you get a winner in a kind of final, it's a nice feeling as well through your career,
Exactly.
Toughest Galway opponent for you, Connor?
Um, Toughest Galway opponent. I used to mark Berkey quite a lot. He was a strong defender. He was very physical. Where and the thing is, he kind of had pace. He had a lot of pace for a big fella. Normally the biggest guys don't have huge pace. But it probably took me a year or two to get the hang of him, in terms of, I don't know. He used to do a lot more gym work than I did, and he had massive arms. So if he kind of got his arm around you, fucking very hard to get away from him. And I was like, Jesus, man, I can't get away from this fella at all. Like, and we had a couple of very good battles over the years, in terms of because he was probably along my age grid at the time. I think when I started, I mean, you had Tomas was playing. Obviously, Decky's brother would have been playing at that time. Gary Fahey's brother,
Richie
was cornerback when I started at that time, for the first couple of years. But throughout, I suppose, my main playing years was Berkey would have been the one I was marking. I marked Kieran Fitz in my first game, actually, and Kieran Fitz I was marked in my first year in 2000 in Castlebar. Curra Finn, obviously, was going very well at the time with Curra Finn, like, and I was obviously only starting, you know what I mean? I missed a free in that game later on, which probably would have won it. And then Joyce went down and got a good score for them. That was my first year. And I remember in that first game with Galway, there was a bit of a schmozzle in the defence. I think Casey was probably playing full forward for me on. There was a bit of shoulder and then barking or whatever like that. And I don't know, fucking Fitzy or someone gave me an elbow into the mouth, or it wasn't hugely sore at the time. And I'm over to get a drink of water, and I smiled across, and I'd say that the top 5 teeth there were all broken. It wasn't sore at the time, like Fitzy, he wouldn't have struck you as being a dirty player, like, you know what I mean? But it was a good welcome to inter-county senior football at the time, I'd say.
Well, he was a debutant that year as well.
That was his first year.
Yeah.
He won an All-Star in 01 then.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So yeah, look at, and like, I think, like, when you're coming in, like, from a starting point as a young fella, as a corner forward, your club, and you're scoring X amount, and you go into a county team at corner forward, like, the realization is, like, you're marking, like, the majority of cornerbacks at county level are probably centre backs or midfielders for their clubs, like. they're big men. Like they're not generally the cornerback in your club team. Like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I found that at the start when I started, like these big apes coming in on top of me. Like I was like, what the fuck, man, is going on here? Like you know what I mean. But then Berkey, obviously, for the couple of years that he was around me, like you know what I mean. And but like good times. I mean, I think. You know, and I always knew then when we were playing Galway, like I'd have to be, you know, practicing hard that week, training well, and be really ready to play because I generally had a decent record against Galway, like in terms of playing. I didn't play too many bad games, not because it was particularly playing Galway, but I knew the caliber of player that I was going out to mark. Like so, you know, you really had to be sharp, and a lot of that time, like even if Trev was marking you, or you know, Kenneth was marking fucking Finnegan or whoever it was, like we all knew each other fairly well. Like you know, we're not. It wasn't like you're playing from Kerry or you're from Cork and you haven't a clue. Like, but like I used to watch and go back to what you're saying there. The three boys you mentioned as the best players that you know you played with. I mean, I used to go in religiously to watch Joyce playing in Tuam Stadium when I was young for at least probably 4 or 5 years. Like
Was he the best Galway footballer you seen?
he's the best club footballer I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and you played against him, Jackie, many time in Perth. The stuff he used to do for Kildare, man, is just like
Yeah. He was the only man who
right.
could play the game and ref the game at the same time.
Yeah, he had,
Well, in club anyway.
it was a bit like the mafia, man, that time around Tuam, you
Mhm.
know what I mean, with that gang. But yeah, he was very good. Joyce was top class, like. But no more than like fucking like Mickey, your own brother, like just you know, they've always had a very good caliber of forward players in Galway. Like they've always produced good forwards. You know what I mean? That's never been where I think, from our point of view on Mayo, like we probably have. You know, you could name 5 or 6 Galway lads there, like where we might name 2 or 3 lads over our years in terms of being deadly finishers or whatever it may be. Like go back to McDonald, obviously, I can kick a ball. Andy Moore and O'Connor, I suppose, as well. But yeah, but yeah, going off slightly off track there. But anyway, what's the next question?
That is all we do have time for, lads, on this evening's show. Thanks a million to Declan and Connor for coming on to this week's podcast, and hopefully we'll be back next week with our fourth Connacht title in a row.